Okay, we're going to begin, guys. We're honored today to have the two mayoral candidates for Harrisburg, our incumbent mayor, Mr. Ramstad. Give him a hand for being here today, guys. And our second candidate, Mrs. Julie Bowen. Just a reminder, the two candidates will be here again tonight in a more formal setting with Mr. Mitch Krebs, a local newsman who's going to moderate that debate, and the community members. You guys are certainly invited. The registrations that you turned in, we turned those into Canton, so obviously today you're making some decisions about who you'll vote for, and so listen carefully to the candidates. I hope you all participate as citizens and get out and vote, in particular in your local elections. We're going to do this really informally today. We'll give the candidates 4 or 5 minutes just to talk about why they're running and who they are, so you can have an idea about how they got to this point in their lives and why they're interested in this particular position. We do have some students who have written some questions from Mr. Doan's class. Ms. Jensen has one, Ms. Rickett. If any of you others have any questions, you may ask as well. And then I have some written that I can ask if you don't have any. Okay?
So Mr. Bates,
yeah.
Why are we recording off that microphone? We turn that microphone off for you?
It was on.
It is.
Yep. I'll turn it off when these guys step up. All right. So I think we'll the coin flip backstage. No, there actually wasn't one, but I think we'll go alphabetically. So I'll have Ms. Bowen start again. Let's give her a warm Harrisburg response.
Good afternoon. Is this on?
No, it's just recording, but it doesn't project in here.
Oh, okay. The wonders of technology, right? Good afternoon. I want to thank you for being here. I know this is probably boring, right? Yeah. And let me guess, you get out of something else, right? Yeah. But you know what? This is really important. And like Mr. Lean said, the decisions that you make today and the decisions that we make today influence your future. And I know that's kind of heavy to think about, but I wish I would have thought about it when I was sitting in your chair. And in fact, I wish I would have had the opportunity to have a debate like this so that I would have gotten interested in local politics, state politics, not even necessarily politics, but just getting involved in my community and doing what I like to do, which is one of the reasons why I'm running for mayor, is helping people and listening to residents and helping them achieve what they want to achieve. As Mr. Lean said, I'm Julie. I'm originally from a small town, somewhat like what Harrisburg used to be like. I have a Bachelor of Science degree at the University of South Dakota, and I have an MBA from the University of Nevada. I decided when I was your age that I knew it all, right? So I left the state and decided I don't need South Dakota. But guess what? I came back, and I came back for a reason, because South Dakota is a pretty darn awesome place to live. It's a more even awesome place to raise a family. And what I'd really like to do is help that be even more awesome for you, for your family, and to give you the opportunities that, as citizens, you deserve. So I want to thank you again, Mr. Lean. One of the reasons I'm running again is because a couple years ago, there was a contentious issue, and I called my state legislator, and I said, I want to do something. And he said, you know what? You need to get involved. And I said, but I don't want to get involved because it's too much work. And he said, but that's the only way you're going to make a difference, Julie. And so that's why I ran for city council. And again, I believe that Harrisburg is faced with some pretty dynamic issues coming up and some pretty important decisions. We have a couple roads we can take, and we got to pick the right one so that when you graduate and you come back with science, engineering, mathematical degrees, there are jobs for you in Harrisburg in this area at the very least. So that's why I'm running for mayor.
Please welcome Mr. Ramstad.
Thank you very much for inviting me here today. I really appreciate seeing all your faces out there and listening to us. How did I get here? Well, I've been the mayor since 2005. I originally started on the city council in 1998. And before that, I was on the planning and zoning committee. So I've been involved in city politics for quite some time. The reason I got involved is because somebody asked me. It wasn't necessarily something that I thought I wanted to do, but it's kind of interesting that it's taken me to this many years, and I have never lost my interest in the politics since that time, and I continue to enjoy it. I enjoy listening to the people, listening to what they have to say, and then trying to make it so what they want can come true. It is not a position that can be done alone. It is all done by the council, the residents, and all the other communities like the Harrisburg Baseball Association, Harrisburg Parks, the Harrisburg Days. You cannot have a city like Harrisburg without all those entities. So it takes a group effort by all of them to improve and to have a lot of pride in your town. I am a lifetime member of Harrisburg. I graduated in 1980 from Harrisburg. I am a My sons graduated from Harrisburg, and my father also graduated from Harrisburg. So there's 3 generations of Ramstads that have graduated from Harrisburg, so there's great pride with the Ramstads in Harrisburg. So there's a long tradition there, and I pride myself in listening to people and paying attention to people and making sure that their voice is heard. So thank you very much for today.
Okay, we're going to start with some questions. Sadie, where are you at? Oh, right there in front.
Do you believe there is a need for a city council building in Harrisburg?
Mr. Ramsey, do you want to start with that one? Sure.
Yes, I do believe there is a strong need for a city hall in Harrisburg. We need to have a central focal point and something that the residents can have a pride in, a building where you can go pay your bills. And also, we've already are in the planning stages, have been in the planning stages for a few years on a new city hall. The reason we are currently on hold is part of the way city government works is something came up, the Columbia Sanitary Sewer Basin, which a developer came to us and said they want to develop their land, so we needed to do that sanitary sewer basin before we did City Hall, so it's helping that developer develop that land for City Hall. But we have, just this past last fall, we did a design stage and came up with a conceptual design of a new City Hall. So hopefully within the next couple of years, we will be able to have a new City Hall in Harrisburg.
Thank you, Mr. Ramsey. Mrs. Bowen?
I agree that we may need city facilities. I'm not sure that we need a brand new city hall. The reason I say that is because with the economy the way it is and with the current infrastructure that we have, we really need to bring business in first. And I'd really like to see us widen our streets, get some sidewalks, invite businesses in first, and then with that revenue, we would be able to build our city hall. But to answer your question, Sadie, excuse me, I'd like to see a downtown. I'd like to see, as the mayor said, we need a place to have as a community. I'm not sure that a building will do that. I think that a main street will do that, and I think that you as Sioux Falls and Harrisburg, you need to come to Harrisburg and feel like there's a main street and a community. So I would be more apt to look at an overall design first, figure out where that city hall fits in there, and then design our city main street.
Mayor Ramsey, do you want to say anything in rebut to any of that, or
No.
feel okay? Okay. Ms. Rickett, Courtney Rickett?
With communities such as T and Canton benefiting from their pool in their area, why hasn't Harrisburg built a pool to generate more revenue and to help kids have something to do during the summer?
Ms. Dawn?
Courtney, that is an excellent question, and it's a question that's probably on every one of your minds, along with every parent in this city. Pools are kind of a good and bad thing. Again, given the revenue that we bring in from the city, we simply can't afford a pool, period. Could we save and save and save and save forever? Probably. But again, it gets back to the root cause of, and I don't know if any of you listen to some of the financial people, you have a you have an outgoing problem, or you have an incoming problem. We spend okay. We don't have the revenue coming in. And so the problem is we need to bring in business and we need to bring in taxes to help pay for that pool. Now, to go around your question, is that I have helped create the Harrisburg Days Foundation. I was one of the founding board members. If you've been paying attention to that at all, we do have a new park plan that does include, in Phase 3, this pool. Now, we know, again, that the city can't afford it, so there's a gentleman named Jay Uguski who has been our president, and he has actually done a phenomenal job in 3 years of what we thought where we would be in 5. So there is a plan. It's going to be built with private money, private resources, and potentially there will be some money that the city helps. The problem is the money just isn't there right now for a pool.
Thank you. Mr. Ramsey?
Kind of expound on that a little bit. For the past 5 years, the city of Harrisburg has put $35,000 a year away specifically towards a pool fund. So 5 years ago, the city of Harrisburg started seeing that there is a need for a pool and started a pool fund. Also, I believe it was about 10 years ago, there was a development in Harrisburg that dissolved, and they gave the city $100,000 at that time towards the pool. So we do have approximately $200,000 to $250,000 saved up for that pool fund, which will also be allocated towards the Harrisburg Days Foundation to help do that pool. And as Julie said, we have gone, when you compare us to T and Canton have been at the population of 3,000 to 5,000 people for quite some time. So that helps with their development, and they're just a little bit farther away from Sioux Falls and Harrisburg, so they get more retail to help them raise funds for a pool. Harrisburg, when I started on the city council in 1998, was 850 people. So in those few years, in 12 years, 14 years, we have gone from that to the last census was 4,200, just over 4,200 people. So that's quite a growth in such a short time, and that's the struggles we have with funding all these things.
Thank you, Mr. Ramstad. Ms. Long, any further comments or?
No, just other than to give you the gravity of the situation, the pool that we've priced out from the Harrisburg Days Foundation is about $3.9 million. So again, I know that sounds like when you guys think, I'm going to be 40 someday, and you go, 40? That's never. $3 million is a lot of money. It's a lot of money to us, and it's a lot of money of your tax dollars. So again, being able to have other sources to help us build that pool is really what we're looking for.
Another question. Anybody have one from out in the audience, or shall I just go to the list? Alexis wanted to ask a question? No? No? Quiet? Okay. All right. Next question for Mr. Ramstad. With recent discussions of a Walmart potentially being built within our city proper, what do you see as pros and cons of such a project?
The pros. It's Walmart. It's sales tax. It would be the biggest thing that would ever come to Harrisburg to date. So that's the biggest pro. There's nothing more than that. I mean, the sales tax alone, what we use sales tax for is parks and streets. Them are two things that we have to take from our taxes to fund. The water and sewer, they are self-producing funds. So your water and sewer rates pay for those infrastructure items. So that would be huge. That would be a huge step in getting our pool. The downside is we do not have the infrastructure at this time in place to facilitate a Walmart. And one of the cons that Sioux Falls experienced was how close a Walmart would be to the School of Sioux Falls Christian. If we put a Walmart in our city limits, we would be it would be as close to 3 of our schools as it is to Sioux Falls Christian. So I'm guessing that would be a con too. If it's a con up there in Sioux Falls, I'm sure it would be a con down here. Sioux Falls said they would have to do $9.3 million in road improvements just to put that Walmart there. City of Harrisburg does not have $9.3 million. Our total CIP project for the next 4 years is $14 million, and that's all we can afford for that. So it would be virtually impossible for us to do $9.3 million.
Thank you, Mr. Ramstad. Mrs. Bowen?
Again, I'm going to take this question actually to a different level, if you don't mind a little bit. Yes, pros and cons. It's revenue. It's putting us on the map. It's the ability to bring jobs into the city. It's the ability to bring people to the city, to patronize other businesses. Cons are, as the mayor said, we've got some issues with land. Not that we don't have plenty of cornfields, right? But again, getting there. The biggest issue that I see is that, and actually, let me step back for a second. One of the reasons that we even attempted to talk to the Walmart people is that after we did so, I received several calls, and people were actually shocked. They said, I'm surprised that Harrisburg is open for business. And I said, that we are. We are open for business. And they said, but we never hear anything down there. We never hear no one reaches out. And I said, we're here, we're at the table. So it may not be a Walmart, but we're not going to stop trying. And again, if it means that we need to build it somewhere else and annex land in, there's always alternatives. And we just can't take no and limitations for an answer.
Thank you, Ms. Bowen. Mr. Ramstad, any other comments on that?
No.
Mrs. Bowen, how do you see the Minnesota Avenue construction project impacting the Harrisburg community?
Excellent question. Who asked that question? Or did you plant it? Good. Good. I'm very proud of you because it does two things. Shows that you guys are thinking to the future. And, or, why did you ask that question? Oh. All right. Well, okay. Mr. Lane, you're so smart. Actually, again, seriously, these are the kinds of things that are going to impact your future. First of all, there's a meeting tonight that we're going to attend. I'm going to be attending, and it's going to talk about the project. Unfortunately, this has been pushed back because it's state money, and we all know, as you have been embroiled in the whole state, how is the school going to get money, right? We don't know what the time frame is. And so we're going to learn that tonight at 6 o'clock at Liberty School. However, what that's going to do is that's going to bring us opportunity. Again, it's going to bring more traffic. It's going to hopefully help other commercial builders build on that area. I did hear that on 85th in Minnesota that there is I'm not sure of the developer, but there's someone that's looking to build office space and those types of things. So they're already anticipating that. Sioux Sports was one of the first ones out there. I'd love to see them be not the only one out there anymore. So I think it would be a great thing for our city.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowen. Mr. Ramstad?
The extending 115 has been in the process for 10 to 12 years, I believe. And like Julie said, it's been pushed back that many times. The letter that went out to the some of the businesses along that is it's in the planning stages for this year, starting construction next year and completed by 2015. And it'll be 4 lanes all the way out to Harrisburg. One of the effects it has on Harrisburg is what Julie said as to a main street. In our CIP plan, we kind of identified Cliff Avenue at this time as to next year starting to do planning and construction on from Willow all the way north to the first mile. So 1 mile of stretch is roughly $2 to $3 million depending on how you construct it. So that might even have an effect. Doing 115 now may change the Harrisburg's mind that maybe we need to do from Cliff Avenue out to Minnesota Avenue instead of Cliff North, because that may be where our traffic is. So that could sure change the whole demographics of Harrisburg again, and that's the challenges that we face, is those types of things that throw curveballs at us that we need to adapt to just on running the city.
Thank you. Anything else, Ms. Bowen?
No. Thank you.
All right, this comes from Mr. Doan's class. With the continued growth of the Harrisburg community, what demands do you see on the infrastructure of Harrisburg, and do you think Harrisburg can meet those demands? Mrs. Bowen?
Yeah, I agree. We have some growing pains, don't we? Even since you guys have probably gone from the middle school here, you've seen a new school built. We know that we're not losing students, thankfully, right? But really, the infrastructure problems that we have are really good problems, and I know that sounds kind of odd. The town that I grew up in, every time I go home, I'm losing another building on Main Street. And so, again, I'm sure their city council is worrying about having a Main Street, not building one, but having one. And so we're going to need to build roads. We're going to need to continue to use our infrastructure for our sewer and our water. We all know that Sioux Falls is coming, right? So it makes sense for us to go that way. So again, we're going to have to continue with our roads. As Mayor mentioned, 10 years ago there were 957 people. Today there's 4,000 people using Cliff and Minnesota. That's 4 times as many people on the same roads. And so if we continue to grow, we're going to need to continue to make more avenues and wider lanes.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowen. Mayor Ramstad?
For our infrastructure is really pretty sound right now. I think we got a lot of publicity. Seems like I was on the news every day as to whether we were going to have water for our residents a few years ago. We have corrected that problem. We have erected 2 water towers that should take us for the next 10 years. We have, in the past 5 years, we started with a wastewater force main to ship to Sioux Falls that started out with a budget of $9.3 million, I believe. But through negotiations, through grants, we cut that down to $2.3 million that it cost our residents. So that was a huge savings to our residents. And so the 2 things that I feel that were needed first to generate economic growth and to grow Harrisburg was the water and the sewer. Them are the 2 things you need to live. So them were the 2 priorities while I was the mayor to begin with. We have taken those. So the next priorities now are parks and streets in my book. And so that should help the lifestyles of Harrisburg. So I believe we have made huge strides in the last 5 years as to our infrastructure, and hopefully in the next 5 years we can even do more.
Thank you. For Mayor Ramstad, there's often talk of an old Harrisburg and a new Harrisburg. What kind of problems do those present as a mayor?
I believe probably 5-7 years ago, there was a huge old Harrisburg and a new Harrisburg. Now in the last 3 years, I really don't see or hear as much of that as I used to. The old Harrisburg is maybe about a 3-block radius now at the most. And most of them people are new people that are living there now and not the old residents that live there. And there are new developments on all 4 corners of Harrisburg. So there really isn't an old Harrisburg or new Harrisburg in my eyes at this time.
Thank you. Mrs. Bowen?
Okay, now, Mayor, I'm going to actually respectfully disagree. And he's right. We do have a lot of new residents. It's interesting because I'm in the new part. I had a sister, and my niece and nephew graduated from Harrisburg High School about 10 years ago. Wow. And it's interesting to hear them talk when they come back home, and they say, and I'm sure your kids do the same thing. They come home and they say, oh, it's not like it used to be when we were here. And so, I just think that's a natural progression. People sometimes are resistant to change. And I do think that there is still the residents that have grown up here, that have stayed here, and their kids are in school, still feel like that old Harrisburg. I think that kids coming in, even from Sioux Falls, feel that there's a Harrisburg and a division, which is something we really need to work on overall. On the lighter note, this isn't just a Harrisburg problem. I've spoken to people from Garrettson and Brandon. This one gentleman told me he's been in Brandon 15 years, and he's still considered a new resident of Brandon. So I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's your generation and leadership like this that's going to help bridge those gaps.
Thank you. Mrs. Bowen, what are some programs that you might use to enhance student activities, kids' activities, or new programs you might introduce?
Oh, there are a ton, really. And really, truthfully, our imagination is our limitation. Because I would love to see your student council get more involved with the city. I know that there's been another alderman here that has talked to the student council about potentially putting a student representative that could come to our meetings. The other thing that I'd really like to get involved are for you journalism, English people. We'd like to help have you, we'll get a newspaper, not that that's easy, but we'll get something and we would have you help us with articles and writing and getting the real life experience, right, as you're in school. So there's those avenues. There's a ton of volunteer avenues. Harrisburg Days. Again, feeling part of the community is being involved in the community and being involved in these things. So to introduce programs, they're already there. We just need to get you involved in them. But again, there's no idea that's a bad idea. And if you have other ideas, we're willing to listen.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowen. Mayor Ramstad?
As Julie said, there are already many programs in action right now. One of the biggest ones is the Harrisburg Cleanup Day, which is always the first Saturday of May. I know Mr. Marks and his group have always helped on that day, and I know there's been times where there's been up to 16 to 20 kids there, which is very huge for the city of Harrisburg and is very appreciated that that happens. I know there have been volunteers where they've come to help paint houses. So there has been a lot of volunteering. It's just you as individuals taking it upon yourself to enroll and take part in these various things that the city has going at all times. So it is really up to you guys to get involved. They're out there. You just need to get involved.
Thank you, Mayor. For Mayor Ramstad, with most voter turnouts recently around 10 to 20% in Harrisburg, they're not modeling for the students, obviously, the parents are not. How do you propose to get more involvement for the parents so that the students can catch up to that as well?
Boy, I don't have an answer for that. That's been a problem with elections since the day elections started. There have been many theories, many things tried. It's just people just wanting to have an interest in just getting out there and vote. That's the key thing to any election. The other key thing is the city has only had an election, I believe, 3 times in the last 15 years. That's kind of sad too, where there's not enough interest from residents and other people that to even create that 2 people become interested in the same position. The last 2 elections that we've had, I've been involved in both of them, which is key. That's key. That means they're showing interest. The one good thing that we have seen in the last year is a lot more response to people showing an interest to become part of our park board, to become part of the Harrisburg Days, to become part of Harrisburg Baseball Association. So that is an encouraging sign to me that people are finally starting to show a lot more interest in their community and want that community to grow. So hopefully, just tell everybody, get out to vote. I tell everybody that. Whether you vote for Julie or you vote for Reed, at least you're voicing your voice out there and you're making it heard. That's the key.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Mrs. Bowen?
I agree, Mr. Lean. I would love to see our voter registration, or actually registration first, but secondly, our voter turnout higher. And there's a couple things I think that we could do as citizens. Number one, you can go home and tell your parents to vote. Remind them. Secondly, if they're not registered to vote, help them get on the Secretary of State website and help get them to vote. You guys are all tech savvy, right? Maybe your parents aren't, but you are. Third is getting involved. Again, as I told you, one of the reasons I'm running is because, or have even done public service, is because unfortunately it took something that I was emotionally worried about or upset about to get involved. And I wish someone would have helped me get involved prior to that. And that's what we were talking about, these volunteer opportunities. And I know we've talked to Mr. Holbeck about coming down and speaking with you. Again, we've also had another alderman here. I know that our school resource officer is really engaged. We really want you to be part of the community, and we want you to care. We want you to care about your community, and then when you care about your community, you actually are going to care about the decisions that are made. And again, if Mr. Lean right now said everybody is on detention, and he made that decision, you'd say, well, why? But if you had the ability to talk to Mr. Lean and you could work it out and you'd have a voice be heard, then you'd actually be able to have part of your voice. And that's what the mayor was talking about, is have your voice be heard. Don't let things happen to you. Don't let people impose policy and things that you don't have a part of, because this is your future.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowen. Yeah. Yes. Hold on a second.
One of the issues that we sometimes see in elections is that the voters don't see a major difference in the two candidates, that it doesn't matter who gets elected because the policies and the processes will be fairly similar, and they don't see a benefit of one over the other. In listening to you talk, you seem to be in agreement on most of the issues, with the exception of Old Harrisburg, New Harrisburg. But what makes you stand out from the other person that you would deserve their vote in the upcoming mayoral election?
This is Mr. Hanson, our government teacher. You might. Mrs. Bowen, would you go first, please?
That's actually a very good question. And in reality, and I kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier when I said Harrisburg has a couple different paths to take. There's something called status quo. And that's where we are now. We're at the same meetings, we do the same thing, we make the same decisions, and it drags out for months. Or you can have progress, and you can have progression, and you can have somebody who's going to push things along a little bit and reach out to Sioux Falls, reach out to the commission, county commission, reach out to these people. That's what I've been doing, and that's what I will continue to do. I think that's your difference, Mr. Hanson. Not that Mr. Ramstad has done a bad job. I think that what he's done is he's been able to continue and to handle the issues as they have come up, but I'm more proactive, and I believe that we would be looking at a more strategic and a visionary plan for Harrisburg rather than just a checklist, a capital improvement plan, that type of thing.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowen. Mayor Ramstad?
We kind of talked about this in a meeting a couple months ago about the council talked about what they all saw as to where they wanted the city to go and what they wanted to accomplish. And throughout that whole thing, we all had the same common goal, and that is to make Harrisburg a better place to live. How you do that can be two different things, you know. Julie, from her words, is I'm one to go very fast, not necessarily plan ahead. Reed is one more that I have a more slower approach to things, and I think that's probably one of the biggest things is like Julie said, let's go, go, go. That's good. That pushes the other people that don't go as fast, and I'll admit it. I'm more of a person that plans, likes to have a plan and have a place to go and know where it's going to go before I start. So I'd say that's probably the two biggest difference between the two of us.
Thanks. Any other questions before we have closing remarks? Austin, do you have one? I'll start down here. If you don't want to correct.
Well, what I kind of noticed with both of you, you said, Ms. Bowen, that you were more proactive and you would move a little bit more quicker, and that you, Mr. Mayor, that you would kind of, take things a little bit slower. But what things are you planning on doing
and enacting policies, whatever, because you guys didn't really specify on what.
Thanks, Jess. Mayor, do you want to go first, please?
The biggest things that we needed to concentrate more on in the future is like I said earlier, is we have the two pieces of infrastructure in place now. So now what we need to, as a city, we need to concentrate on our parks and our streets. The key things in my mind to promote economic growth, and that's the next step for Harrisburg, is economic growth, is to have, the best thing a city can do is to have their infrastructure in place and ready to promote economic growth. If we do not have that infrastructure in place, we cannot have economic growth. So now we have the water and sewer in place, the streets and parks will come with the deal. So now, even this past couple weeks, we have met with our Economic Development Board, and we're coming up with better ways to attract businesses through maybe sales tax rebates or refunds, different things, so we can help attract different businesses to the city of Harrisburg. Harrisburg has really been crippled in the previously is our population. A lot of the businesses that I have met with say you need a population of 5,000 people before we'll start looking at you. So that's kind of the key that I've seen and heard from a lot of different businesses. So we're at that now. We are so close that businesses should be able to come to Harrisburg. I think one of the biggest things that hurt us was the downturn in 2008 of the economy. I really feel that there would have been about 3 or 4 new businesses in the city of Harrisburg had that not happened. So now we need to grow from there. That is showing signs of being gone. So now we can improve and bring more businesses into town.
Thank you, Mayor.
Are we running out of time?
No, go ahead.
Actually, I just want to clear up one thing before we go on. First of all, I do go, but I do plan. It's interesting that people who don't go as fast think that there's never a plan. There is a plan. When the Parks and Recreation were unable to, because of the city, was unable to afford that, again, I myself, 2 other individuals got together and we created a plan. That's called the Harrisburg Days Foundation, as it is known today. That's what's working on your pool, Courtney. So there is a plan. There's also plans to reach out to Sioux Falls so that when those business opportunities arise, like such as a Walmart on 69th and Cliff, we know about it first, because the problem is again, being reactive. If Walmart goes on 69th and Cliff, we're going to have a really, really, really tough time getting any other businesses in town. And so again, getting to those tables, I've been there. I don't know what tables you've been at, but I've been there. I've worked with the city council. I've worked with the county commissioners. I've worked with the economic development as well. To answer your question of the plans, I've already talked to the county commission about putting in a TIF district for Willow and Cliff here. That would help generate development. I've also already worked on reassessing some of the city functions and how they operate, making them more efficient and maybe making them more effective. I've also worked on, another example that I've done is, do you guys remember, or do you ever get to watch TV when you're sitting at home and you have that snow alert that comes across the bottom? It says Harrisburg Snow Alert. Okay, where did that come from? Me. You want to know why? Because I was tired of hearing residents get their cars towed because they had gotten home and they'd already been ticketed and towed. So again, I formulated a plan, I brought it to the city council, I worked with the maintenance department, and it went out in the city newsletter. So there are plans, and those are some of I have a plethora more to add. But you can actually visit on my website, votebowen.net.
Thanks, Ms. Bowen. I have one more question and then closing remarks, candidates.
A little easier question. So I've lived here my whole life since I was like 2. Food and Feel has been there since the day I was there. Remember walking there all the time. That sat there for 6 years. Nothing's been done with it. Is there anything going to be done with it, or do you have any plans for it, or is it just going to sit there?
Thanks, Ms. Bowen.
whether we like it or not, food and fuel is private property. So, unfortunately, we as a city can't do anything about that. However, there is some talk about maybe potentially using that property for some other things. But unfortunately, when it's private property, there isn't a whole lot we can do. Now, again, can we reach out to the plans? Can we reach out and can we talk to this gentleman and say, what can we do? Is there a way that we could, from the city perspective, buy it? Could we create like an incubator that the South Dakota Technology Center has, where we allow businesses to come into Harrisburg and maybe live rent-free for a year? That's an option. That's a plan. That's something that I've talked about potentially doing when I become mayor.
Thank you, Mrs. Bowen. Mayor?
Just recently, I've heard that piece of property could be purchased at a very reasonable rate. Part of the reason as to why it wasn't purchased before is there are fuel tanks underneath there, and it has been very expensive to reclaim the dirt and ground when there is tanks, and whether they have leaked or not for contamination. That is something that is very costly, that could even more than double the cost of that property. But then I have also heard that there are grants out there and funding out there to take care of that now. So that is something that is just brought to the City Hall committee as to, is that maybe a possible place for City Hall, is to purchase that land and maybe some adjoining land as a potential City Hall place. So that is something that the city is investigating and maybe doing a little more research into.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, you want to stay up and you could do your closing remarks first? Thank you.
Sure. I want to thank everybody again for listening to us, and I really appreciate having the opportunity to come and talk to you this afternoon. It has been very educational for me, and I hope it's been educational for you. I hope you learned something. I did. And I hope you get out and vote in 2 weeks. The polls are open from 7 in the morning till 7 at night, so you should have time to vote. And just to make it clear, only residents of Harrisburg are able to vote in that election.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's give him a big hand. Mrs. Bowen?
Just a real quick correction. It's in 3 weeks, not 2 weeks. That's April 10th is the election, right? Is that 3 weeks? 21 days? Yeah. So I had to think about that for a second. Okay. Again, I want to thank you for your attention. I know this was probably something that Mr. Lane made you do, but I did hope you learned something. And I hope you walk out of here with a little bit more of a piece of your community in your heart. Because whether you live in Sioux Falls or you live in Harrisburg, Harrisburg is where you're always going to say you graduated from. And whenever your class reunion comes around, you're going to say, I remember when we did this, or I remember that teacher. And there's always going to be a place, I know you don't believe this, there's going to be a place for that town in your heart. So I thank you again today. Please get your parents out to vote. One other thing is I just want to let you know that I do believe we do have some differences here. I hope you saw those today. And you consider that when you're considering your future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you so much. I'll see you in a minute.
Yep.
Thanks. All right, stay here for just a second. I've got a couple little things. Okay, don't forget senior projects. There's a couple of you whose journals have still not come in. You're losing points daily. So if I spoke with you and you have not been those in, make sure you do.